Will Midnight, the data privacy blockchain, be utilizing Cardano, Ethereum, or even Polkadot? Well, the answer is complicated, but yes, it will be utilizing all three of those blockchains and more. As a part of today's video, I want to break down exactly why something like Midnight using the partner chain model is so important, not only to benefit Cardano, but how it can benefit the entire Web3 and blockchain space. What's up, Ada Nation? Welcome to Dapp Central, your home for everything blockchain and crypto. I'm your host here, Fareed. As a part of today's video, we're diving into the latest updates surrounding the Midnight network. If it's your first time hearing about Midnight, it's a data protection and privacy blockchain announced by Charles Hoskinson back in Edinburgh in 2022. Following that, we saw the closed version of their DevNet released in October of 2023. As a part of today's video, I want to jump into updates surrounding the DevNet. I also want to highlight some upcoming events that the Midnight team will be attending. And then last but not least, I want to give you guys a brief update surrounding the Dust token. Now, before I continue any further, I want to take an opportunity to quickly plug in my latest interview sitting down with Charles Hoskinson, the CEO of IOG, as well as Aaron Barak, the CEO of the Midnight Network, in which we talk about how Midnight will be able to help Cardano and other blockchains, but then also bring in traditional players that need protection and privacy from the Web 2 space. As always, if you do enjoy updates like these, I would appreciate you if you could smash that thumbs up. If it's your first time stopping by and you want more content like this, consider subscribing. And last but not least, if you have any questions for me surrounding Cardano or Midnight, then make sure to go ahead and leave a comment down below. As always, if you want to take it a step further in supporting the channel, consider delegating with the official Dapp Central stake pool, which is stake pool ticker DAPP. Jumping into the first piece of news here, we have the Midnight DevNet, which is now open to developers. So as I mentioned earlier, back in late 2023, we saw the first cohort of, I believe, around 1,000 developers getting access to the Midnight blockchain. So it seems like the team, in terms of development, has gone through enough iteration to be comfortable, right, to open this up to the general community. So if you do want to go ahead and join, I'll go ahead and leave the link to it down below. But as a quick recap, utilizing the DevNet, you can go ahead and build data protection DApps on the network. You can also experiment utilizing shielded swaps. So that's, again, the biggest offering here with Midnight, the data protection and privacy. Last but not least, you can fine-tune DApps without impacting real users or assets. Again, because this is a DevNet, all the tokens on that network don't hold any real value. At the time that I'm shooting this video, this is not an incentivized DevNet. So that's the first piece of news here I want to quickly highlight, is the fact that the DevNet is now open for the general community. Now, following this, we do have an upcoming Twitter space with Charles Hoskinson, Mauricio, and Diego, who are both contributors and developers to Midnight. This will be taking place at 10 a.m. Eastern on Friday, March 1st. So if you have any questions for Charles surrounding how Midnight will have an impact here, not just on Cardano, but within the Web3 space, you can jump on there and ask that. And then from a more developer perspective, if you have any questions about how to onboard, or maybe just how the DevNet has currently gone, then you can probably pose those questions to Mauricio and Diego. Next, we have the Midnight team, which will be attending ETH Denver. So it states here, the Midnight team are on their way to ETH Denver, and we can't wait to introduce Midnight's new data protection blockchain to the Ethereum community. I want to take a moment here to highlight that Midnight is not Cardano specific. Every time that there's been any sort of Midnight announcements, there are always a few stragglers that tend to ask, why are there no mentions of Cardano? Keep in mind, you guys, that this is its own independent blockchain. I'm going to dive into exactly how it works in just a minute, but keep in mind that this is a part of the Cardano service layer approach, which basically means that Midnight can be its own blockchain, utilizing consensus mechanisms or having blocks being verified by other networks, including Cardano and Ethereum. So again, Midnight can utilize the backbone of other networks, which is not just Cardano, which is why the team will be attending ETH Denver to begin to showcase the data protection and privacy benefits that a chain like that brings to the entire Web3 space. Again, stay tuned. I'm going to be diving into the service layer approach, or the service layer model, and how that benefits not just Cardano, but all the networks here providing security. Moving over, in terms of ETH Denver itself, if you want to find out more about that, you can head over to ethdenver.com. I'll leave the link to that down below. This does take place annually in Denver. The last year's event was pretty big and pretty successful with the community, and I expect this year to be nothing less. Jumping over, I want to quickly highlight the recent blog articles surrounding Midnight, and then some interesting pieces here that I saw surrounding the Dust token. So if you guys are not familiar with Dust, this will be the shielded token that lives on the actual Midnight network. And I'm going to jump into the dual token model, in which we're going to see another deflationary token, which is distributed on Cardano, which is unshielded. So quickly just highlighting here, a shielded token will be a token in which when you transact with it, all of the data associated with the transaction in terms of the amount and who actually sent it and received it, etc., will all be shielded or hidden, as opposed to how blockchains like Cardano currently work, where you can jump onto an explorer and view all the transactions in an open and easy, transparent manner. Now, when you're dealing with the unshielded token, you'll still have those abilities. But again, keep in mind that with the utilization of ZK rollups and just some of the additional privacy features that Midnight brings, you're going to get that data protection through utilizing that shielded token, which in this case, I believe will be Dust. Because they will be using Dust on the DevNet, very similar to how we have Test Ada, there's also going to be the release of T-Dust. So it highlights here the testnet Dust token, or T-Dust. T-Dust is the Midnight DevNet token used by DevNet users and developers to pay for transaction fees and to access and use DApps built on the Midnight DevNet. Very similar to Test Ada here on Cardano, which you use to pay for transaction fees. And then for some protocols, you can supply that in order to earn a yield, etc. Scrolling down a little bit, they do break down some of the features and abilities that you get when you jump onto the DevNet right now, which include the ability to store, manage, and interact with Midnight assets and dApps directly with the Google Chrome browser using a Midnight version of the Lace wallet. So this was a question that I posed to Charles and Aaron Barak when they were here on the channel. Again, please make sure to go ahead and check out that particular interview. I'll leave the link to it down below. But they basically highlighted that Cardano native wallets will not be able to connect or interact directly with the Midnight network. There will be bridges in place to facilitate the moving of assets from Midnight over into Cardano and vice versa. But what it sounds like here is that there's going to be an additional wallet, right, specific to Midnight, developed potentially by IOG, because again, it mentions Lace, which that is currently mentioned or operated or funded by IOG, being used on the Midnight network. So jumping back in here, it seems like you'll be able to take that particular wallet, load up via faucet, get some T-Dust, and then begin to interact with dApps and smart contracts that have already been built on the DevNet. In addition, you have the ability to pay for transaction fees and move shielded DevNet T-Dust tokens peer-to-peer within the DevNet. So again, imagine me just wanting to send another address, some T-Dust without necessarily having to utilize a DApp. You'll be able to do that right now on the DevNet. In addition, it does break down some updates surrounding ZK proofs, or zero knowledge proofs, in which it states that you'll be able to create ZK proofs and perform ZK computations utilizing the local proof generator software to facilitate the submission of secure transactions and proof data from clients. So that's, I think, the biggest offering here that Midnight brings. Now, I want to quickly highlight that we have not had any updates since the initial announcement of an airdrop back, I believe, in Dubai, which was announced by Charles and Aaron Barak. And that was really what gathered a lot of attention surrounding Midnight. So again, keep in mind that Charles and the team have been super tight-lipped because they don't want to leak out any information and then have to double back and change that. But then they also know what an airdrop attracts, right? Which is the general airdrop community that just might be here for a pump and dump. So we haven't had any updates surrounding that, but it does sound like once the team is ready, they'll release the tokenomics. And as always, I'll make sure to cover those here. Now, I want to go ahead and quickly pivot and just talk a little bit more about the service layer approach, or the service model approach, in which it will benefit, Cardano as well as Ethereum, and sort of basically any other blockchain that's willing to provide its infrastructure services, right, when it comes to validating blocks for Midnight and any other services taking a very similar approach to how Midnight is being built. So I've got this diagram here breaking down the CASL, which is what's here at the very top, or the Cardano Asset Settlement Layer. Here we have all of the core Cardano infrastructure, which include upgrades which have come from Byron Shelley, Gauguin, Basho, and Voltaire, which is going to be dealing with governance. And so again, this holds ADA and Cardano native tokens. This also utilizes the extended UTXO model. It also holds Plutus, which is obviously used for core development here of smart contracts. In addition to that, we've got Ouroboros, which is the consensus protocol, and then potential Babel fees, which allow for fees to be paid on-chain without actually utilizing ADA. So that said, this will all be governed utilizing SIP number 1694, which is right around the corner as we speak. And then what's interesting here is that moving forward, right, with the service model approach, we're going to have bridges which allow for communications to come from Cardano into whatever that service layer or that service blockchain is, which in this case will be Midnight. Now, Midnight will have its own blockchain. It'll have its own tokenomics, its own transaction logic, its own network logic, its own consensus model, as well as that dual token model where T-Dust or the Dust token is only utilized within the Midnight network. But as blocks are minted, right, by whichever network are providing or is providing the security for Midnight or the service, they'll be rewarded with that deflationary token. So now that we better understand how Midnight will work from a technical perspective, I want to break this down in an easy to understand example utilizing everyday entities. In this example, we're going to have two electric companies, one named Cardano and one named Ethereum. And then we're going to have three different services. One will be a bank, one will be a plumbing business, and one will be a gym. Now, in order for those businesses to make money, they have to bring in everyday users like yourself and I, for example, as a gym membership, right? Or even a bank account. So to that end, in order for those three businesses, the bank, the plumbing business, and the gym, in order for them to run, they have to have electricity to keep the lights on in their actual buildings. So that's where Cardano and Ethereum, the electric companies, come into play, where they're able to provide their backbone services in order for those businesses to operate. Now, for example, let's say that the bank wants to use Cardano for electricity, the gym wants to use Cardano as well, and then the plumbing business wants to use Ethereum. It's at their discretion, right? They're able to do that with, again. So that's why I want to break down the fact that when we're talking about these different services where Midnight is just a service, just like the bank, just like the plumbing business, or just like the gym, they can choose whoever they want to power them, right? Now, once they actually have the power and an agreement in place where they're able to pay those electricity providers, Cardano or Ethereum, then we have those electricity providers who are now satisfied. Again, that's how Cardano and Ethereum will benefit in this situation. Now, once the three businesses have their own power and they're able to operate, they then have to attract customers that want to use their services. So again, everyday users like myself who have to open up a bank account, I will interact directly with the bank. I'll pay a fee to the bank for their services. Very similarly, if I want to go ahead and use the gym, I have to go to the gym and actually pay the gym, right, a monthly membership. And then let's say my faucet breaks down, I have to jump over to the plumbing business and pay them to come and fix my faucet. So in that end, we now have a three-way relationship where the electricity companies are able to benefit from the services that those three companies are providing to everyday customers. Again, it's going to be a very similar scenario where you have DApps maybe built on Polkadot, built on Avalanche, built on Ethereum, built on Cardano, who need the data protection services that Midnight provides, and therefore they're going to be paying Midnight to use that data. But because Midnight is being run by Cardano on the back end, whenever a block is minted or whenever data is verified, right, on the Midnight network, the SPOs that are providing that security for Midnight are then rewarded, and so will their delegators be rewarded as well. So again, this gives opportunity to multiple networks, not just Cardano, to have a brand new way to earn utilizing the service model approach. So I hope that really sort of simplified things there for you guys, but that's basically how this model will work. And again, if I jump back into this diagram here, this hopefully makes that very simple. So on the very left-hand side here, we have a Dapp, let's say, which operates on Ethereum, which needs the data from Midnight. They're able to strike a relationship with them, maybe that they pay Midnight on a monthly basis. But because Midnight is being run by Cardano, anytime that blocks are minted, Cardano SPOs are also rewarded. So again, the end user or the Dapp is happy because they get the data that they want, which is protected data. Midnight is happy because they now have a new customer. And then Cardano SPOs are also happy because they're also being rewarded through the protection that they're providing, or the quote unquote electricity that they're providing to the Midnight network. Now imagine an environment where there are hundreds of different services, right? Again, the bank, the plumbing business, the gym, you could have hundreds of these businesses that all need different infrastructure or electricity providers. So Cardano may not get the job for every single service, but if Cardano is able to get multiple jobs, that opens up a brand new earning opportunity for stake pool operators here in the ecosystem. So hopefully that's beginning to make more sense. Again, it's an interesting concept, but it's one that we actually see and utilize in our everyday lives. The very last point that I want to make about this particular service model approach is that we operate in an open market. So very similar to how Google has taken the majority of the market share when it comes to their search engine and some of the features that they provide, we could see a very similar scenario playing out with the service model based on who within the infrastructure providers provides the best services. Again, for example, think of Amazon AWS and their cloud hosting and infrastructure services. Why do so many people utilize them? Well, because they have the best uptime, the best security, and they're simple and easy to onboard. Very similarly, we could see hundreds of different infrastructure providers coming into the partner chain model. But if Cardano is able to outshine the rest by showing its decentralization, its strong uptime, and its ease of onboarding, it could very well win the majority of the services, right? Therefore, again, providing more opportunity to all the SPOs here. So I want to end there on a positive note. And as always, I hope you guys found this to be helpful. So that will do it here for today's video. I wanted to take a quick minute just to quickly highlight the service model or the service layer approach, exactly how that will work, and exactly why it's important to understand that Midnight is not necessarily specific to Cardano, but Midnight can be used or can be operated, right, in conjunction with any other network which provides its consensus model for security to Midnight. Very similarly, we're going to see this ecosystem beginning to grow out, but this opens up brand new opportunities for multiple networks and multiple node operators, not just within Cardano. So hopefully that's kind of bridged the gap there and hopefully answered the question as to why Cardano may not always be mentioned in conjunction with Midnight, and exactly why we're seeing the Midnight team attending ETH Denver. That will do it here for today's video. I will jump into the service layer or the service model approach in future videos, but if you have any questions, please leave them down below. Again, recapping here today, updates surrounding the DevNet going public, as well as the Midnight team having a Twitter space with Charles, and the fact that they're not going to be attending ETH Denver taking place here at the end of February. Last but not least, we've talked about some of the features, utility, and use cases for the T-Dust or the Test Dust token, which will be the shielded token operating on the Midnight network. As always, if you found any portion of today's video to be helpful, I would appreciate you if you could smash that thumbs up. If it's your first time stopping by and you want more content like this surrounding Cardano and Midnight, consider subscribing. And last but not least, if you have any questions for me surrounding anything we've talked about, then make sure to go ahead and leave a comment down below. That said, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next video.